Arthur Schopenhauer was never afraid to face uncomfortable truths, and among his most controversial ideas were those about women, love, and desire. While many found his words harsh, few realized that beneath his cynicism was a kind of brutal honesty about human nature. He didn't hate women, he simply refused to romanticize them. He wanted men to see clearly what society and emotion often hide. That attraction, manipulation, and dependency are not accidents. They're part of nature's design. In Schopenhauer's eyes, the relationship between men and women was not just emotional, but deeply biological. He believed that desire isn't about love, it's about continuation of life, survival, and the laws of nature that control us more than we control them. He argued that when we strip away illusion, we see that relationships are often less about connection and more about need. Harsh, maybe, but denying it doesn't make it any less true. The value in Schopenhauer's thinking isn't in bitterness, it's in awareness. Once you see human nature clearly, you stop being manipulated by it. You stop idealizing others and start understanding yourself. That's not cruelty, that's power. Because only a man who understands reality can rise above it. So here's my question for you. Do you want to keep believing the comforting story society tells about love? Or are you ready to face the truth that might change how you see everything? If you are, write seductive wisdom in the comments, because what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew about attraction and human nature. Schopenhauer believed that love, as we know it, is not what it seems. Behind every romantic feeling, every heartbeat and promise, he saw something far less poetic. A biological illusion. According to him, nature disguises its cold reproductive instinct with the mask of emotion. We think we're choosing a partner out of affection or compatibility, but in truth, it's nature using us to ensure the survival of life. Love, in his eyes, was the most beautiful trick evolution ever played on humanity. This idea sounds cruel at first, but look around. How many relationships begin with passion and end with resentment? How many people confuse chemistry with destiny? Schopenhauer argued that the initial fire we call love isn't about long-term happiness. It's about selection. Nature uses attraction to bring two people together, but once its purpose is fulfilled, the illusion fades. What's left is reality, often less romantic but far more revealing. Yet understanding this illusion doesn't mean rejecting love. It means seeing it clearly. The Stoics and Schopenhauer shared one truth: clarity brings freedom. When you stop worshiping the fantasy of forever and start accepting the truth of impermanence, you gain control over yourself. You love consciously, not blindly. You appreciate connection without letting it enslave you. Even modern psychology supports this view. Studies show that the brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, the love chemicals, in patterns almost identical to addiction. It's not that love isn't real, it's that it's chemical before it's spiritual. Schopenhauer understood this centuries ago, reminding us that emotion is nature's way of controlling behavior. So here's something to think about. Are you in love with the person or with the illusion that nature created in your mind? The answer can change how you love, how you trust, and how you see every relationship in your life. Schopenhauer believed that desire is not a choice, it's a force. It controls us far more than we control it. Every attraction, every obsession, every act of passion is, in his view, nature pulling the strings. Men think they pursue women because of love or preference, but Schopenhauer argued that it's the will to life, a blind instinct inside every human, that drives this pursuit. We are, as he described, puppets of the species serving a purpose we don't fully understand. Desire, therefore, is not innocent. It's nature's form of manipulation, rewarding us with pleasure to keep us chasing what ensures reproduction and continuation. But once the chase ends, the pleasure fades, leaving behind confusion, boredom, or even regret. That's why so many relationships lose their spark once passion cooled. The instinct has completed its purpose. Schopenhauer saw this as one of life's cruelest truths. The more we obey desire, the more it enslaves us. Yet, this realization can also become a source of power. Once you see desire for what it is, a fleeting biological command, you can rise above it. You can act with reason instead of impulse. This is where Schopenhauer's philosophy aligns with Stoicism. Control yourself, or be controlled by nature. The Stoics called it mastery of the passions. Schopenhauer called it liberation from the will. Both mean the same thing: freedom. Modern neuroscience supports this. Studies show that the reward system of the brain lights up not when we have what we want, but when we pursue it. Nature keeps us chasing to maintain the cycle. Real strength, therefore, isn't in satisfying every desire. It's in understanding it, observing it, and refusing to be ruled by it. So ask yourself this: are you the one controlling your desires, or have your desires been controlling you all along? Schopenhauer would say, until you answer that honestly, you don't truly know yourself. Schopenhauer observed something that still makes people uncomfortable today. Women often hold power not through physical strength or authority, but through influence. He argued that nature gave women a different kind of control, a psychological and emotional one. While men act, women attract. Their strength lies not in confrontation, but in subtle persuasion. In his view, this wasn't manipulation, it was balance. Nature distributed power differently, not equally, to ensure survival. He believed that attraction itself is a form of influence. A woman doesn't have to demand attention. She commands it simply by being the gatekeeper of desire. Schopenhauer wrote that men chase and compete while women choose. That choice, though often unnoticed, defines the entire dynamic. The irony, he said, is that men believe they are in control when, in truth, they are reacting to a game nature designed long before they were born. This doesn't mean that women consciously manipulate men. It means they instinctively know the rules of attraction. Modern psychology agrees women tend to rely more on emotional intelligence and social awareness, skills that allow them to influence without aggression. In evolutionary terms, this makes perfect sense. Women needed to secure protection and stability, so nature equipped them with the ability to read, connect, and subtly guide. For men, understanding this is not about resentment, it's about awareness. The wise man recognizes the dynamics of influence without falling victim to them. He neither idolizes nor resents women, he simply sees reality. Schopenhauer warned that ignorance of this balance leads to suffering, because the man who doesn't understand female influence will always misinterpret it as either dominance or deception. So reflect on this. Do you recognize the quiet ways influence works in your relationships? Once you see that real power is rarely loud, you stop being reactive and start becoming observant. That shift alone changes everything. Schopenhauer believed that one of the greatest deceptions of love is emotional dependency. He argued that when love turns into need, it ceases to be love. It becomes bondage. In his view, most relationships fail not because of conflict, but because one or both partners attach their self-worth to the other. What starts as affection becomes addiction. The lover stops loving freely and starts clinging desperately. For Schopenhauer, this dependency was proof that most people are enslaved not by others, but by their own emotions. He compared this to a cycle of craving and disappointment. The moment you make another person the source of your happiness, you hand over your peace. And once that peace is externalized, it becomes unstable because no human being can fulfill what only self-mastery can provide. The more you depend, the more anxious you become. The more you try to control love, the faster it slips away. This, Schopenhauer said, is the silent tragedy of human desire. The Stoics reached a similar conclusion centuries earlier. Epictetus taught that the key to freedom is to love without attachment. Care deeply but do not cling, value relationships but never let them define your sense of self. Modern psychology echoes this through the idea of secure attachment, a state in which love is rooted in stability, not fear. When your peace comes from within, you can connect with others from wholeness, not emptiness. This kind of awareness changes everything. You no longer chase love to feel complete. You share love because you already are. You can walk away from toxic situations not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about your peace more. That is emotional maturity, the transformation from dependency to inner strength. So take a moment and ask yourself, do you love from strength or from need? Because one leads to freedom, and the other, no matter how beautiful it looks, leads to chains. Schopenhauer never told men to hate women. He told them to understand them. His goal was not to create bitterness, but clarity. He believed that once you strip away illusion, you gain power, not over others, but over yourself. When you stop idealizing love, beauty, or approval, you become free from the forces that quietly control most of humanity. Awareness, he said, is liberation, and liberation in turn leads to peace. He understood that truth is rarely comforting. It often shatters illusions we've built to feel safe. But that's the point. Growth begins where fantasy ends. Once you accept that attraction, desire, and dependency are natural but temporary, you stop being a slave to them. You no longer chase validation or fear rejection because you understand both are part of the same illusion. This is where Schopenhauer's philosophy meets the strength of Stoicism. Control the mind and you control the world. In practical terms, this means you start observing rather than reacting. When someone tries to manipulate you emotionally, you recognize it without anger. When desire tempts you, you don't suppress it, you see through it. You become aware of the instinct but refuse to let it dictate your actions. That's the essence of Stoic masculinity, not coldness but calm mastery over the self. Modern psychology now calls this emotional detachment with awareness. It's not apathy, it's balance. You feel emotions deeply but remain centered. You love with presence, not obsession. You live with purpose, not reaction. And ironically, when you stop needing control, that's when you truly gain it. Schopenhauer saw this not as pessimism, but as wisdom born from experience. So ask yourself, are you living under the illusion of control, or are you finally starting to see the truth? Because the moment you become aware, you can no longer be deceived by nature, by desire, or by anyone else. And that, Schopenhauer would say, is the beginning of true freedom. If you've made it this far, understand this. Schopenhauer's message was never about cynicism. It was about awakening. He wanted you to see what most people refuse to see. That love, desire, and emotion are not pure choices, but forces of nature. The wise man doesn't reject them. He understands them. Because once you understand, you stop being a puppet of instinct and start becoming a master of yourself. That's what real wisdom looks like. Quiet strength built on awareness, not illusion. So ask yourself, are you still chasing what the world told you to desire, or are you ready to rise above it? If this message opened your eyes, write seductive wisdom in the comments below, because understanding these truths isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming clear. And clarity is the first step toward freedom, confidence, and peace. Remember, you can't control what others do, but you can always control how deeply you understand the game. Once you stop playing blindly, the power shifts back to you. That's the essence of Schopenhauer's hidden insight. Freedom doesn't come from changing others. It comes from mastering yourself.